Okay, I started the recording. And here is tonight's agenda. I could find it again. There it is. So welcome. Some of you guys we haven't seen in a while. Really appreciate you showing up tonight. We'll have a short discussion from our officers. I'd like to have a little discussion about the Texas QSO party because I guess the results have been finalized and Keith is here. We need to talk about officers for 2021 a bit. And our program tonight is from Jeff Hope to talk about power line noise and what CenterPoint can do to help. And we'll adjourn after that unless somebody has another topic that they'd like to bring up. So are there any changes that need to be made to the agenda? Anything you guys want to add? Okay. Any officers have anything they would like to share with the group?
Not I.
Go ahead.
I said I had nothing.
Okay. This is Larry, KB5WWW. As treasurer, I'd just like to remind everyone that it's the end of the year and the annual dues is coming up to be due. I believe that was in the bull sheet also that just went out. So both the email, PayPal address and the mailing address for the dues is there. That's it.
I applied for my second lien on the house.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, very good. Anything else? Okay, let's talk about the Texas QSO party. I guess the results were published and they're official now. Is that right, Keith?
That's right. In fact, we've had our first revision. Scott put that up yesterday, so we're all square.
Cool.
I'd like to say thank you to Keith because I know it's a lot of work. Appreciate the work.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I've been doing it. This is my 7th year. So
cool. So we had
figure out how to keep the people in Austin from taking plaques, though.
Well, they always win the club. Well, I take it back. We've had other winners, but there've been very few.
So Alan had the high in Texas, N5XZ had the high in Texas CW. Is that correct?
I'm not looking, but yes, I think that's true. He beat out a couple of guys that are really good. One of them was Gator. He beat out Gator.
Ralph Bowen, N5RZ.
Yeah, everybody know Gator?
Know him well.
He won last year.
Okay, cool. So one of the things that we had talked about a little bit was things that we could do to enhance the, to improve the TQP next year. And one thing that sort of came out of that discussion was, more mobile operators could be a big benefit. So hopefully this year, before next year, before the 2021 edition of the TQP, maybe we could have some programs or some demonstrations or some discussion or something on the reflector at meetings, or maybe even, something outside of meetings for, how to mobile, how to do portable work. I mean, anything like that could encourage people to be, to activate some more counties, I think could be a good thing. So hopefully we'll have some volunteers for that as we move forward.
Yeah, one of the pluses is to attend ham radio club meetings like this and promote it.
Yeah.
I bet Orville can tell us how to avoid going to jail. I ran with him once and he was a smooth talking devil.
Okay, cool.
You know how it is.
All right. Anything else about the TQP? All right. So I wanted to talk about 2021 officers. Several people have, so theoretically we have elections, but since we don't have multiple candidates for any particular office, we don't really have elections. And we still need someone to fill the role of president for 2021. And one of the appointed positions is the DX chairman, and we need someone to fill that role in 2021. And we need someone to do to fill the role of vice president of programs in 2021. So I talked about this last month. I wrote about it in the bull sheet. You know, we just need somebody to step out of the bushes and fill one of these roles. It will help us keep going. So any volunteers? If you do, there's lots of help. You know, you won't be in it on your own. Anybody that's interested, I'll be more than willing to share what I know, what I've done, what I think I've done right, what I think I've done wrong on quite a few of these in any of these roles. But we do need somebody to step up to the plate.
Well, I've staked out secretary myself, so.
Yeah, so we've got several volunteers. I mean, we have, you know, and continuity is good, but new blood's good is good too. So we just need some, we need some new ideas, some new ways to do things, and that comes from somebody kind of taking the hold of the wheel and going. So.
By the way, Roby, I don't know. In the past, we discussed programs. One of the possibilities was de-expedition showing. You know, I have about 11 de-expeditions on DVD, so that's a possibility.
Sure, absolutely. And so we're working on a list. I've kind of sent it out, and I'll send it out to the board of directors, and we'll send it out again with some ideas, some things that we've done, and some future programs. So that could be really good. So we'll keep that going.
I was watching Ham Nation last night, and Bob Heil and Gordon West both said that they're willing to come basically almost any time, anywhere, over Zoom or some other similar platform to attend a club meeting. I think we ought to try to take advantage of that.
I think that would be excellent. And, you know, some other clubs have been able to get ARRL officers and that sort of thing to attend their meeting. I think in particular with Zoom, it's really easy. And so I think if someone would ask, I think we could probably have some participation like that as well. Cool. Okay. So I guess the next topic is Jeff and power line noise. So Jeff, it's up to you, and I will set the screen to share so you can share it. So you may share at will.
That's great. Roby, I appreciate you inviting me to this meeting here. I must say this is my first Zoom meeting that I've ever done in my whole life. So I had to inquire to my daughter, who knows all about this stuff, how to set this up. And we did a couple of trial runs. And she said, well, what are you going to do for me? I said, well, I tell you, I can show you how to troubleshoot a watchdog timer circuit from an S9000E radio. But she didn't like that very much. So I got to come up with something else. But anyway, I just want to let you guys know that I've been with HLNP, Reliant, and CenterPoint for 38 years now. Started out in the radio shop, didn't know a thing about radios, but I learned rather quickly. And so I've worked on all kinds of radios, starting from, we used to have the Master Pro radios, the GE radios back in the day, and then we had the Master 2 radios. And we went on up to the synthesized radios, the Delta radios, which was kind of a piece of crap. But nevertheless, we since then went on to the Motorola radios, and now we have a Harris system, which is really kind of a plug and play. I mean, the days of a soldering iron are pretty much over, at least in my work. I can't tell you the last time I had one in my hand. I used to go there and plug that thing in every day. And nowadays, Well, I do RFI, so I'm not really in the shop. But those guys, they just pretty much send the radios in to get fixed or just replace a module or something. It's really changed a lot since I first started. But I've been in this RFI thing probably about almost 15 years now, and I've learned a lot. I mean, this is something that you learn as you go. A lot of it is. I've had some lessons from a guy named Mike Martin, who they call him the guru of this RFI thing, and he's very knowledgeable. He gives lessons all around the nation, and I've been to several of his workshops. And actually, I know I see a couple of you guys. I think I've known. Maybe I've run across you guys before. I know Mr. Berg. I've run into you a few times over there when you lived over there. I guess by the golf course. I don't think you're living over there now, but anyway, I know. I hope maybe I'll run into you guys in the future. But anyway, what I'm trying to say here is that I've got a presentation I'd like to give to y'all, and I hope I can do this right. Okay. Normally I'd be looking at you in the face and pointing to a screen, but let's see if I can handle this. So I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm going to bring up this presentation, and I hope it comes up. And let's see here.
We're seeing it.
Good. I'm going to start the slideshow from the beginning. And I will say this, a lot of this presentation, this particular presentation I've done for a lot of people, and I've done it for some hams as well. And you guys know much more than some of the people I show this thing to. So I'm going to run through this probably a little quicker for you guys. And I'm not trying to insult your intelligence when I talk about things that you already know about. So I just basically want to get the point across of what we can do to help you guys when it comes to power line noise. And some things you may not know that we do. But basically our agenda is going to be what is RFI, which most of you guys know what that is. Who is affected by RFI? Who are the contributors? What are the causes or sources of RFI? And what is CenterPoint Energy's responsibility? And then what is our resolution procedure? Okay, I will say this, before I came into doing RFI, several years before I came to the shop, I came to the shop in '83, and they were telling me back in the '70s, there was a guy that went out with an AM radio and a sledgehammer, and that's how he located RFI. Well, those days are over, okay? We've got a lot, thank goodness. We have a lot more intricate, I guess, means of locating and problems on the poles. And I'll go through some of these things and show you as we go through the presentation. But what is RFI? And RFI is any electrical interaction at radio frequency that adversely affects equipment, performance, or operation. Now, you guys know this. And the generic term for this is an electromagnetic interference, EMI, that covers all electrical interactions ranging from radio frequency to audio frequency sources. And who is affected? Well, residences are, okay? I will say this, we go into a lot of residences, and it's not necessarily ham radios operators. People will call us with AM radio problems. They're trying to listen to their, 740 in the morning or their 950, and all they hear is a buzz, okay? So normally what they've done is they've gone out and they've hired an electrician to come and go through their house. And the electrician comes back and says, well, there's nothing going on here, and all your grounds are good. I don't know what the problem is. If he's smart, he'll say, why don't you call CenterPoint and have them come and check their lines? That usually gets the ball rolling. And sometimes it'll come down to me. Hopefully it will. And then we'll go out to the residents. And if it's not our power lines that are causing the noise on their AM radio, because it only affects AM radio, it doesn't affect FM radio at all, then we'll go inside the house if they'll let us or allow us. And usually we can locate the problem. These kind of problems that are inside of a house are usually solvable by going to the breaker box and turning off the main breaker. The noise goes away, it's something in the house. And then you just go through each breaker one by one until you can kind of, isolate which part of the house the noise is in. And usually these type of noises is because something is plugged in, something like a wall wart, sort of a transformer type of device that's plugged in, that's arcing, and that's usually what causes that type of a problem. Commercial businesses sometimes cause problems as well. Usually that entails maybe a light they have, some sort of fluorescent light or something, a ballast has gone bad, something of that nature. And of course, amateur radio operators are affected, as we all well know. Also, airports are affected. We get calls from hobby sometimes. Normally, our calls come down from Galveston, down there at Shoalsfield, because there's a lot of salt on the lines down there at certain times of the year. And they talk on VHF, and they have a line that runs right past the tower. And we're down there pretty often trying to clean their lines up so they can talk to their planes. Hobby's a little bit different. They hire a guy from the FAA, and he comes down and he'll locate all the power lines for me. And then he'll call me up and he'll say, hey, Jeff, I got this line, this line, this line, and this line. You need to come and check. And then I'll go out there, and he's right. He's got the equipment. He knows what he's doing. And our company will get out there pretty quick and fix their issues there. But yes, airports are affected. Cable and telephone companies. I've had a lot of calls in the last 10 years from Comcast, mainly Comcast. And it's because they use coax. They're not really into fiber yet. AT&T has been into fiber. I don't get very many calls from AT&T unless we're having an issue. Maybe there's a lightning arrestor or something on our line that's arcing real close to one of their amplifiers. But normally I don't get calls from AT&T. Comcast calls me all the time because they use coax. And even though they're supposed to have a closed system, you know, we know that in reality, their coaxes are going to be split. Their connectors are not going to be very, you know, put together very well. And if we're having an issue with our pole, we'll come out there and fix it for them just to be good neighbors. And they appreciate that. But I get a lot of calls from Comcast. Now, who are the contributors? Well, themselves. Like I said, we go out to houses a lot because they have AM radio problems. And a lot of times they don't even know it's coming from their house, their own house. That's why we have to check their own, you have to check their breaker first, you know, and make sure that it's not something coming inside the house. You ham operators, I really don't have a problem with that. Usually when you call me, one of the first things you guys will tell me is that I checked my house, I turned off the main breaker, I put it on battery, and I still got the noise. That's good. I like to hear that because that's step one in solving these type of problems. Neighbors cause a problem too. Let's go back to the AM radio situation. If we have a customer that's having a problem, maybe coming from their neighbor, you know, hopefully they will know their neighbor. I'll be glad to go over there, run interference, and talk to their neighbor and explain how, you know, what's happening. Hopefully they'll cooperate. We can cut off their breaker and, you know, solve the noise that way. Now, I do run into a lot of customers that they don't know their neighbors very well. I've also run into some customers where they hate their neighbors. And so that's where it stops right there. It's like, I can't go any further with this, you know, but I mean, I'll be glad out of the kindness of my heart, maybe to go talk to them, but I can't make them do anything. Okay. I mean, this is really out of our, let me just say, we're supposed to go up to the meter and that's about it. But we go a step further. You know, if the problem is coming in from inside the house, and a lot of these people that are having AM radio problems are, you know, it's like they're elderly, grandma and grandpa. They've already spent $300 for an electrician to come out there and didn't get anything. It's going to take me 10 minutes to find their problem. Why not go ahead and do it instead of walking away saying it's not CenterPoint's problem? That's not being a good neighbor. We try to go a little bit beyond that. Businesses cause problems too. I think I mentioned earlier about the lights, things that they have inside there. I've had a few issues where businesses had, I guess their computers have gone bad. Say, for instance, 450 megahertz they spit out. You know, I've had that issue before. Not very often. And then, of course, CenterPoint Energy, we cause problems too, and that's why I'm here. What are some of the electrical sources of interference? Well, these are normally inside the house. These kind of things can cause problems. And you can read the list right here: doorbell transformer, touch controlled lamps are a big one. Battery chargers, I run into that problem a lot. Now, this could be like a drill battery that's put into you know, some sort of a charger. It could be a charger that you charge your battery, you know, your car battery up with. Any type of charging device will cause interference. And, you know, security lights, these type of lights sometimes cause problems because not only the ballast, but because of the electric eye. The electric eye is nothing more than a relay, right? And so sometimes the relay sticks about halfway. You'll get a little bit of an arcing in there, and that's going to cause noise. Any type of heating device will cause problems too. Heating pads, bug zappers, as I say there, aquarium heaters. I don't run into that problem too much. I have run into it in the past. I have down there TV sets. We used to have television interference a long time ago, back in the analog days, a lot. People would call us because of interference coming onto their TVs. But since everything's gone digital now, I rarely get any TV calls unless it's something to do with something interfering with the TV that's inside the house, such as, like I said, something that's plugged in, a transformer or something like that. Faulty electrical connections could cause a problem, as you would well know. What are some of the audio sources of interference? Now, this is a different type of interference. This is something you can locate probably with a spectrum analyzer, because we're looking at a particular frequency. Okay, I'm going to explain a little bit later how our line noise goes across the whole spectrum. So you really don't want to use a spectrum analyzer to find line noise. You're not going to find it. The whole noise floor is going to be raised up. However, if you're looking for an audio source of interference, you'll want to, amateur radios, CB radios, business radios sometimes cause audio sources of interference. I know a long time ago when I first came to the shop, we used to go out with and track interference. We always, they were always blaming somebody else for interfering with our UHF system, which we had at the time. We had 8 channels when I first got there. And one of our channels was hung up, and they were saying somebody is keying up and they're getting into our system. Go out there and find it. Well, at the time I was kind of green, so I went out with a journeyman, and we had an old Cushman spectrum analyzer, CRT screen. This thing was, I don't know, it's hard for me to describe here on Zoom, but it's a rather large piece of equipment. Had it hooked into an inverter and went around. And this guy I was with was swearing everybody was causing problems. So this was over there close to the channel. So we just went from we saw an antenna, we went there, we asked him. We saw another antenna, we went there and asked him. And this probably went on for 2 days. And then finally we decided to go downtown. Now, of course, this was definitely pre 9/11. So we talked our way onto the roof, and we had a Yagi antenna and that spectrum analyzer. And so it was a great place. I mean, on top of one of the tower, the buildings downtown, it was great. It was wide open. So we were looking at the east side of town, and we pointed over there kind of close to where our service center was. So we went out there in that direction and of course blamed everybody else. Lo and behold, we found the problem. It was our own station that was keyed up the whole time. And so, you got to check your own stuff first. And I run into this time and time again, to where everybody wants to play the blame game, but it really, you need to check your own stuff first. So that was kind of a slap in the face, and it was a real learning thing for me, being a green radio man that I was at the time. But anyway, I digress here. I'll move on. CenterPoint Energy sources of interference. Bad lightning arresters. Okay, we're going to take a look at some of this stuff in just a second. I'm going to go through it pretty quick. But lightning arresters, those things cause more problems than anything. And usually because it's 24/7 when they go bad. And also they radiate probably further down the line than anything that we have on a line that, radiates down the line. In other words, if a lightning arrestor goes bad, depending upon how high your antenna is, it could be a half a mile, or so down the road. Most of these problems aren't any further than that. Most of these problems are in your backyard or a couple of blocks away. I mean, you think, well, I can talk to Asia on my ham radio. How come I'm not picking up noise, across the nation, But noise doesn't travel that far. It really dies off pretty quick. So most of this noise is usually within a few blocks, of where your antenna is. Slack or bad dead end bells, and I'll show you what a dead end bell is here in a few minutes. Loose hardware is an issue. Loose hardware is an issue because these poles, they shrink and they swell, the wooden poles. We don't have problems with concrete poles, and we don't have problems with metal poles usually. So these high lines, the transmission lines, rarely do I have problems with transmission lines. most of the time I have a problem with distribution lines, and those are the wooden poles because they shrink and they swell, and the hardware on there gets loose. So if you have two dissimilar metals, say for instance you have one piece of hardware that's nice and shiny, and then another piece of hardware that maybe is rusted, two dissimilar metals, if you have a gap, and that gap can be very, very small, you may not even see it, you're going to have an arcing, okay? And this is induced voltage. It's kind of like when you rub a balloon on your, on your arm, and then the hair raises up. That's an induced voltage. You guys know this. And I don't. Anyway, so that's what this is. And so that causes the arcing. The arcing goes down the power line just like a giant antenna. And then you guys call me because you're hearing this interference. Okay. So anytime you have like loose hardware, you see this down here where it says bond wire touching the hard wire. Well, the bond wire is a ground wire that goes all the way up the pole. Sometimes those things get loose. They're stapled onto the pole. When the staples come loose, you have an arcing between that bond wire and the staple. Insulators cause problems and transformers. However, a lot of people think transformers cause problems all the time. They rarely cause a problem. I rarely run into a transformer that's a problem. It's usually some other hardware associated device on the power line that's causing the problem, or a lightning arrestor. And in case you guys don't know, the lightning arrestor basically takes the brunt of the lightning before it gets to the transformer, okay? And it'll blow the line fuse out. I hear people all the time going, my transformer blew up in my backyard. I heard it. Well, it's not the plant transformer that blew up. It's the line fuse that blew. And what they do is they put a 22 shot on that line fuse so that when it blows, it'll blow wide open. Because if it doesn't blow wide open, it may cause an arcing. Well, that arcing is a serious arcing. That thing could burn down the pole. So in other words, this thing needs to blow wide open. And that's what you usually hear when you hear this cannon shot out in your backyard. It's a line fuse that's blown. So let me move on here. This is a picture of a lightning arrestor. I have it circled there. That's hanging off of the transformer. That's one type of lightning arrestor. This is another type of lightning arrestor. This is what I call a little squealer, because these things make a hell of a noise and they're really easy to locate. However, this thing could be 3, 4, 5 blocks away from your house, and you may be getting, S5, S6 off this thing.
Yeah.
And this is another lightning arrestor here. And this is an old type of lightning arrestor. When this thing blows, the rear end of it is supposed to blow away from the lightning arrestor itself.
Join a meeting.
That would be the ground side. It blows away. Now, if it doesn't blow all the way away, and there's going to be an arcing if it stays close, metal to metal, if it stays close.
Is 771.
And a lot of times these guys, I'm going to back up a little bit if I can. Well, I'm going to
11.
A lot of times these guys will go up on the poles and they'll put these lightning arrestors in. And then they're supposed to be torqued at a special, I don't know what the torquing is, but it's supposed to be torqued. And what they'll do is they'll torque it, and then they'll give it one more little twist. Well, that little twist will spin, the whole insides will spin. Rain gets inside there, and then all of a sudden you got a problem with a lightning arrestor. You got to understand that a lot of these guys, these linemen, they don't have a clue what RF is. Okay, they know what electricity is, but they don't have a clue what RF is. So sometimes I'll have a brand new lightning arrestor that's gone bad, but they'll come by, even though they have a work order to change it out, they'll look at it and they'll go, oh, there's nothing wrong with that thing. And they'll drive on, close out the work order. And then I have to go back and say, this isn't fixed, So anyway, we've had some issues like that. Let me move on. Construction problems. Okay. I've got this circle here, and maybe you can see that on your screen. This is a bond wire that's going up and it's touching every piece of hardware that's going up that pole. This was probably done by a contractor at one time, trying to get the lights in this pole up really quick. We had a lot of problems like this after Ike, when Ike blew through. Contractors would come up and they'd throw these things together, and they just want the lights on. Could care about anything else. RFI, what's that? We don't know what that is. Then I have to come back later. This is an issue right here. You see where this bond wire is going across this metal bar right there. That's a bracket, and it's going right across it. Horrible construction problem, and that was causing a problem as well. A lot of times you'll see a burn mark right there where that's touching. That's arcing. Here's another construction problem as well. This is what they call a chicken wing. This is holding the fuse And you can see that they put that bracket right on top of the bond wire, and that's going to cause an issue. This is another one that's doing the same thing here. This is another issue here where they ran this. If you look to the left, you'll see the way it was supposed to be constructed. If you look to the right, you will see the wire coming off, the hot wire actually coming off the primary, and it's going through the bracket. Well, in this case, it was touching the bracket and it was causing an arcing. If y'all have any questions, speak up. You know, I'm all. I would love to hear your questions. There's another issue right here. This is very common. There's a square bracket there, and you've got a bond wire going across it. That's going to cause an arcing as well. This is a loose construction here. You got a bolt and a nut and a washer, and they're loose, and they're causing an arcing. That is a dead end bell right there. So that dead end bell, that's the old glass type dead end bells we call. The reason they call it dead end bell is because it's usually the end of the line. And it's an insulator is what it is. But between each one of those little glass bells, they're hooked together in a chain fashion. And that thing will sag after a while. And when it sags, it causes a gap. And then you'll basically get an arcing that happens, especially when it gets really dry. When it rains, the water gets in there and it fills the gap and you don't have a problem. But when it dries out, it can cause an arcing. Usually we can go in there with some conductive grease and we can put it in there and that'll stop the arcing, or we'll just replace it. This is another type of dead end bell that you've probably seen on a pole too. This is the same issue here. They're sort of tied together in a chain fashion. This kind of gives you an idea of how these particular dead end bells are put together. Like I say, when they sag, you get an arcing because the two pieces of metal sort of come apart. They're not very tight right there. We can put conductive grease all around that, and that usually stops the arcing. This is an old dead end bell right here. This is something probably back in the 60s, and you still see a few of these around. Now this type right here is what we call a polymer dead end bell, and this is the new type of bell. There's no connections really except on the two ends. When they go back and replace a dead end bell nowadays, they'll put this polymer type up there, and we have virtually no problems with these at all. Okay. I hope I'm not boring you guys with this stuff.
Not at all.
Okay, good. A pole top switch. This thing is manually operated. Okay. I'm unmuted. I guess you can hear me now, right? Can you hear me still? Okay, good.
Somebody else needs to mute.
This is
Somebody running FT8 needs to mute themselves.
Roby, can't you mute us all and then let Jeff unmute himself? Okay, Jeff, you need to unmute.
okay. Am I muted now? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm good then, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to go back to this pole top switch, and actually this thing is controlled from the ground. It has a switch down at the bottom, and when that thing switches, it's hard to explain without kind of pointing to this thing, but they have blades on this thing that actually move, and those are made out of metal, obviously, and a lot of times you'll get rusty blades. That'll cause an arcing, and a lot of times where this metal, these actual, I guess you would call them the insulators, are actually tied to that metal bar that you see in the middle. We get a lot of rust in there too, and that causes a problem as well. I hate these kind of problems because it can be a lot of things on this pole, and I hate when my instrument points to one of these things because I know it's going to be a nightmare.
We had one problem close to my house, a street or two away, that was some sort of an intelligence switch.
Yes, IG, yeah, intelligent grid, and that's right. It's radio operated, and it'll switch automatically. Yeah. Did you have a problem with the radio part of it, or just the arcing on the pole?
It was just arcing on the pole.
Yeah. Did you call somebody out? Was that in my territory in
Yeah,
CenterPoint?
yeah. You came out and looked at it. You were able to find it pretty quickly.
Oh, good. That's good. Well, great. I'm glad to hear that.
It's Pecan Grove.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, let's see here. Let me see if I can move this now. There we go. This is a disconnect. We talked about that earlier. Right there where it's circled is where the fuse link is. The fuse is actually on the left, and that's the thing it's on a swivel, and that you'll see a lot of linemen come in there and grab that little ring and push it in, and it usually starts to arc really quick when that happens, and it goes away. But when that thing blows, it's like I said, it sounds like a cannon shot. And sometimes those things aren't pushed in all the way and they'll start to arc. And when they do, that causes interference. This is a nice one I found out in Sealy one time. This wire, this strand had come loose. Now, if this primary had hit this neutral down below, we'd had a nice little fire of some sort. But the crews got out there pretty quick and fixed that. But that's an issue too, broken wire. And this is another broken wire issue. If you see over there on the right side, you'll see what we call a kingpin. That's the insulator that's on top of the pole. And they basically wrap the kingpin to the wire by using a tie wire. And sometimes this tie wire breaks off and then it'll slide down the line, the wind or whatever. And when that happens, if you have a gap between that tie wire and the primary, it's going to start sizzling. And that's an issue as well. This is something we see a lot, split pole. Okay, as you can imagine, we got loose hardware up there that could cause a problem. And also that a lot of times you'll see that kingpin just hanging off to the side, like not in this particular case, but a lot of times you'll just see it hanging off to the side. That can definitely be an issue. And then we talked about streetlight problems. I had several customers that have called me in the past. One guy in particular out in Katy, I remember he listened to the ball game every night, the Astros. And he said, it's funny, I'm out there on the back porch and every time right around when it starts to get dark, I'm listening to the ball game and then all of a sudden it goes away. And so we went out there and it's got to be something on a timer or it's got to be some sort of electric eye. So we suspected, first of all, it's a streetlight problem. So I had a lineman go up there to like 3 or 4 streetlights down his street. And he just went up on his bucket and covered up the electric eye until we found the problem. And sure enough, as soon as he covered up one, it started to activate. And of course that, the light started flickering because the electric eye was just kind of halfway in between working and not working. And that was causing his issue. How do we solve that problem? Unscrew that electric eye, screw another one in, and go about our business. It's a real easy fix. Loose bond wire, we talked about that as well. I don't know if you can see that little circle, but that's something I was talking about earlier about our staples. Our staples come loose, and then we have an issue. How do we fix that? Staple it back in. And then I mentioned transformers can cause a problem, but it's usually the very last thing we look for. I'll usually have a lineman go up there and disconnect everything before we figure out the transformer. We isolate it. That's how we'll troubleshoot this type of problem here. If it's not the arrestor, we'll go directly to the primary, straight to the transformer. If we have a noise still, then the crews will have to come out and change the transformer, and they don't like to do that. A lot of them scratching their head. Why am I changing out this transformer? Well, they do it. The FCC will mandate that they do it, and they do it. So anyway, so what are CenterPoint Energy's responsibilities? We'll talk about that a little bit. This is from the FCC guidebook. This is section 15, and you guys probably know this, so I don't even want to go through and read all this stuff. I'll let you look at it there. As far as this is basically the FCC mandating that if you have an intentional or unintentional radiator, that you are responsible for taking care of it. An unintentional radiator would be something like a power line that we have no clue is causing a problem. An intentional radiator would be like a pirate radio station or something like that. Somebody trying to jam intentionally. So Once again, this is section 15-5. It's basically a bunch of jargon telling you that you need to take care of your problem. And the bottom line on this is that if CenterPoint Energy is causing the problem, then we are required to resolve it. You guys, if you get any electrical appliances, you probably know this, but most homeowners don't. On the very back page of the operator's manual, if you don't throw it away like most people do, you don't have an FCC sentence down there saying that if you're causing a problem, then you're responsible for it. So in other words, if a guy has a little wall transformer plugged into his house and it's arcing and it's causing his neighbor AM radio problems, then by the FCC guidelines, he's responsible for taking care of that problem. So in the CenterPoint Energy world, if we're causing problems, whether it's mom and pop listening to their AM radio, or you guys with all this equipment listening to your ham radio, we are responsible for fixing our equipment. And don't let anybody tell you we're not, because we are. Now, what are our resolution procedures? Well, basically we receive an RFI complaint from the customer via one of the following: customer service, distribution control, engineering service center personnel, or by the customers themselves. Now, let me tell you this right up front. If you want service, you call me directly or the radio shop directly. Do not call customer service. You'll be on the biggest roller coaster ride you've ever been on in your life, because those people, they don't understand RFI. First of all, they'll say, what? What are you talking about? We try to educate these people, but believe me, there's so much turnover in that customer service department, new people coming in all the time. And so they don't understand this RFI world. So they'll turn it over to an engineer. Some of these green engineers don't understand what RFI is either, because they're power engineers. And they'll say, well, I think there's somebody over in transmissions that handles that. Then they'll go over to him, and it's probably sitting on his desk for about a week. And then the guy will see it and he'll go, I think this is a radio shop problem. And then maybe a month later, I'll get the ticket. Okay. That's how that works. So at the end of this presentation, I'm going to give you my phone number directly, and I'm going to give you the radio shop number in case I'm on vacation or something. And I want you to take down both of those numbers. Go directly to us. Don't go to customer service. Okay. That's my little spiel there. Now, a technician contacts a customer, that would be me, and we discuss the nature of the complaint. And then I'll, if I need to, I'll arrange a visit to the premises. I always come out to your place. You don't have to worry about that. I will come out there. If you have noise, I will come out there, usually within 48 hours, sometimes that very day. I've had customers call me in the morning. I'm out there an hour later. We cover this whole service territory. CenterPoint service territory goes, say, from east to west. We go all the way from Cove, which is beyond Baytown and beyond Mont Bellevue, all the way to Sealy. And north to south, we go basically to from Magnolia all the way down to Freeport. Now, we have Texas, New Mexico in there in the middle. And then some places we have Entergy. So it doesn't mean that we cover that whole territory, but you're probably thinking, well, gee, Jeff, you're the RFI guy. You're the only guy they have. You must be booked up all the time. I'm really not, to be honest with you. I mean, I may have 2 calls in a day. I may have 3 at the most, but it's usually not that much. So don't be afraid to call me. And most of the time, I'll probably be out there, if not that day, then the next day. So just want to let you guys know that. Okay, so I'm going to travel to the site attempting to locate the source of the noise. If it's determined that the source is being generated by the customers themselves, then they are informed of such and the RFI complaint is considered completed. Okay, this typically happens for AM radio problems inside of the house. You guys are smart enough. I don't have to worry about you guys interfering with yourselves. If it's determined that the source is a neighbor or surrounding business, then the complaining customer is informed of such and the complaint is considered completed. Okay, that's the CenterPoint Energy way of thinking. Typically, we'll go a little bit step beyond. If you know your neighbor well enough, or you don't mind me going and talking to him, he's not going to put a shotgun to my head or whatever, I'll be glad to go and explain things to him. Or I would go into a business and try to explain that to them too. Now, if they don't listen to me or they want to run me off, then there's not much I can do at that point. Okay, so if it appears that the source of the noise is coming from CenterPoint Energy, then the technician attempts to pinpoint the actual piece of hardware that is causing the interference. Well, that goes without saying. And so for distribution issues, a service consultant, these service consultants, they work at every service center that we have throughout the whole territory. They used to call them power consultants. This is, if you're looking to get ahead in the company, this is the first rung, be a service consultant. Then you can move your way up. Don't be a radio man because you ain't going nowhere, but that's beside the point. A service consultant will be contacted to write a work order and then have the issue resolved. All other departments will be contacted directly. Finally, radio communications will either meet the crew on the job to verify that the noise is eliminated or will follow up soon after the work is completed. And it is important to know that the FCC requires interference to be eliminated within 90 days of locating the source. Okay, so from the time I've located the source, legally, with FCC guidelines, our company has 90 days to take care of that problem. So that's something we stress upon our distribution crews. Now, with that being said, those 3 slides, let me tell you how things really work, okay? You call me directly. I will come out there within 48 hours, probably, and it won't take me long, usually, to locate your noise. It may take me half a day. It may take me a whole day. It may be one of those things, and trust me, this has happened before, where there's so much noise out there because the wind's blowing 25 miles an hour that I'll say, I got to come back. This is just too much. It's overwhelming. Nevertheless, I will hang in there and we will find the noise. Now, if it's CenterPoint Energy's noise, I will turn it into a service consultant. They will write a work order. Okay, that usually takes a day, maybe 2. Once the work order is written, it goes over to distribution. Sometimes they'll take that order and put it on the bottom of the stack. Okay, we don't have much preference in my department. Okay, we're kind of like on a very tall totem pole. We're at the very bottom. Okay, and so usually our orders go on the bottom of the stack. Sometimes distribution will take care of our problems relatively quick. Sometimes they won't. Sometimes they push that 90 days, and sometimes within a week they'll take care of it. Rarely will they come out the next day or even within a week and take care of the problem. And I'm being honest with you guys, this is the part of the job I do not like because I like to please my customer. I'm a troubleshooter at heart. I want things fixed. So I go out and I'll locate the noise, but then the wheels slow down when it goes over to distribution. But that's just the way it is, and there's no way to fight it. I've actually had issues before where over in a ritzy part of town, let's say Tanglewood, we had a lightning arrestor that was bad. It took me a while to figure out where it was because Comcast was complaining. So I would go out there that day and I couldn't find a problem. And he says, man, it's gone now. I'm sorry. I said, well, call me when it comes back. Now, this is the technician talking to me, Comcast. So I come back the next day because he says the noise has come back. Well, no, went away. Sorry. So 2 more days go by and he calls me again. This time the noise is there. It took me a little while, but it was a lightning arrestor next to a really nice house. And I documented it, took a picture, sent it to a service consultant. He took a couple of days, wrote it up, sent it to distribution, and they sat on it for a little while. Okay, finally, a crew went out there. Well, you have a lineman that went up the pole. He sees the arrestor, but he also sees a critter guard on top of the arrestor. Now, the critter guard is a plastic sheath that goes around the arrestor. That keeps the little squirrels from getting electrocuted, okay? They call it a critter guard. That thing was kind of hanging off of the arrestor a little bit. And all of a sudden, the lineman becomes a radio man, and he goes, oh, I know what the problem is. It's the critter guard. So he snaps it back on, thinking the problem's fixed. He has no RF devices whatsoever. So he comes down the pole, and they close out the ticket. Okay, the next day, I get the ticket, and it says it's closed out. And so, okay, that's great. Okay, well, Comcast calls me a week later. Now, everybody's hot. This thing has been going on for almost a month now. And these people that live out in Tanglewood, a lot of them work from their house. Well, they need internet service that's reliable. and they're not getting it because the high-speed internet that Comcast has promised is all of a sudden turned into low-speed internet. So they're furious. Well, one of their people that lives out there knew the president of Comcast. Well, he went directly to him. Well, guess what? The president of Comcast goes directly to the president of CenterPoint Energy. Oh my gosh. Then everything starts trickling downhill, as you well know. Okay. And then it comes to me. And of course, I'm quizzed about what happened and how come this hasn't been fixed, blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm covered. Okay. I have paperwork and all that. I'm fine. But in the typical ways that most big companies and CenterPoint Energy, I hate to say, it's called crisis management. So that next day, they got 3 crews out there at my beck and call. Boy, all of a sudden I feel important. So they're saying, Jeff, tell us what the problem is. We were going to fix it right now. I said, oh, we got a lightning arrestor over here. First and foremost, fix that. Okay, that took them all of about 30 minutes. Jeff, is there anything else? Well, let me see. There's a couple of dead end bills that I've had some issues with out here. You know, now I'm the boss, right? So I had them change out about 2 or 3 dead end bills to make sure everything was clean out there. And I walked away from that thing. I was a proud rooster. I'm telling you, I thought, man, this is great. Well, guess what? Crisis management only lasts as long as the crisis lasts. So everything kind of goes back to normal after that. So, you know, it's just the way the big company runs. And I wish it would run differently, but it doesn't. But I mean, I guess I can say that. I mean, I'm not really a company man, and maybe I shouldn't say that, but this is what I see. This is real life, okay? But I will tell you this. Your noise problem will be taken care of. It just may take a little longer than you think. All right. That's a whole spiel right there. So here's our troubleshooting techniques. I like to attach my monitor to your antenna because the monitor I use is this thing right here. And I hope you can see it. It's a Radar Engineers Model 243. And this thing is the best thing we have in our whole group of, I guess you would say, troubleshooting things. We will go out and we start looking for noise at about 150 megahertz. That gets us within a couple of blocks of the noise. I can start hearing it within a couple of blocks at 150 megahertz. Now, when I attach my device to your antenna, I'm going to see a pattern. And I hope you can see this because I can record patterns on this thing. I can record video. I can record just still shots, but it's going to give me an image. That's the image that I'm going to go find. You may have 3 noises out there in your area, but there's only one noise that's going to be interfering with you, typically. So that's the noise I want to find. I don't want to find a noise that's not messing with you. Remember this, it's not interference unless it's interfering with somebody, because there's noises all throughout this place. I don't walk out every day out of that shop and go, hey, there's a noise, let's fix it. Hey, there's a noise, let's fix it. No. Too much money, too much time. If it's not interfering with you, it's not interference. And that's the business I'm in, is the interference business. So when I come and I hook onto your antenna, I'm going to see a pattern that looks something like this. And I'm going to pull one up from the past, and I hope this works. It looks and it sounds like this. Okay, and I hope you can see that. Zoom probably doesn't do it very much justice, but nevertheless, you could at least hear it. That's line noise. That particular pattern I can see, it's like fingers going across the screen, kind of like that, you know, maybe it says 3 sometimes, maybe it's 2, whatever. That's line noise. That's the arcing. That's the gap right there is what you see. That's how fast this thing is pulsing, like that. I can't tell you about the milliseconds or anything like that. I'm really looking at a pattern, okay? Different patterns. If it's something that's inside of your house, that pattern is going to look totally different. So that way I can look at it and I can say, oh, that's our stuff. That's a line noise. Or no, this is something coming from your neighbor's house or something like that. Let's look at it like that. So, and that just really comes from experience and knowing what you're looking for. Trust me, guys, this is not rocket science, or I wouldn't be doing it, okay? It's really about repetition and doing this stuff over and over. So once I've got the pattern, I can put it on my screen, on the upper half of the screen. The lower half of the screen is real time. So what I do is I go out and I just match the pattern. You know, I may have a noise over here, but the pattern's not the same. That's not your noise. I go down here another block. It's matching right up. I mean, I can move this thing to where it'll match up. I have a, what do they call this knob here? The sync knob, where I can match it up. And then it's an ingenious invention, and it just works beautifully. Now, once I found the pattern, then I use this device right here, which is a Yagi antenna, and it's an amplifier, and it's an RF device at about 320 megahertz. And the ingenious thing about this, just like the unit that I showed you there, is that it has a gain knob. If you go out hunting for this stuff and you don't have an attenuator or some sort of gain on your your device that you're looking for, you're doing yourself a real disservice, because you have to locate this stuff using a gain or an attenuator. Otherwise, you're going to hear noise all over the place, and you'll never locate the single piece that you're trying to find. I know that makes sense to you guys. Sometimes I have to explain attenuation to people. But nevertheless, remember this, line noise goes across the whole spectrum, okay? So the closer to the source, the higher in frequency it's going to be. As you get away from the source, the frequency goes down like this. And so you'll start hearing it at a lower frequency, but as you get closer to the source, you want to get higher in frequency so you can get, to the source itself. That's why some of the customers will say, I've got my AM radio and I've gone out here to this pole and I can hear it. I know it's this pole. Well, you're talking about kilohertz here. That's really low down in the spectrum. I mean, the noise may be 3 or 4 spans down. It may be further than that. You just hear it right there. But if you went up in frequency, say like 400 megahertz, you'd have to get really close to that pole to actually see it at 400 megahertz. So we have to take it a step at a time. We start looking at 150 meg, and then I'll point this Yagi at 300 meg. This will get me to the pole, typically. Now, once I get to the pole, I use this device. This is also made by radar engineers, and you've probably seen this before. This is an ultrasonic device. This is not an RF device, ultrasonic device. I can point this at the pole, and I will hear that noise that you heard earlier by using, once again, an attenuator, okay? The gain control is your friend when you're looking for this kind of stuff. So this thing will actually pinpoint on the pole what the problem is. And then I can get alignment out there, or, and change out whatever I need to have changed out. It's really kind of a foolproof method. I'm not saying that everything is foolproof. I mean, there's obviously problems that I've run across where I've scratched my head many, many times. But typically, this stuff is very easy to locate. Okay, so let's move on here. I think I pretty much explained everything I have here on my troubleshooting techniques. Now, this is the most important part right here. This is my phone number. So this is my cell number, that 304-2728. I don't mind you guys calling me at all. They wanted me to carry around another cell phone number. I mean, a cell phone, but I don't like carrying 2 phones. I'm going to lose one of them, and I don't remember which one my wife's calling on and which one's the customer's calling. It's too confusing. So I just have one phone, and that's my cell phone number. Now, the radio shop number is our department, and that's a good number to have too. And there's my email as well. You can take that email down as well. So at this point, I want to ask you guys if you have any questions about any of this. I'll be glad to answer what I can. Okay,
what kind of problems can you solve on your own without having to call in the line crew?
Well, if it's coming from your own house, it's very easy to solve because you cut your breaker off and you'll have your radio on battery. Obviously, if you plug your radio in, it's going to go off as well. But if you have it on a battery, you can at least tell whether it's coming from your house or not. Now, other than that, it's going to be really hard for you to tell where the power line is that's having the noise, unless you look outside and you actually see or hear it sizzling. Now, some people get transformer hum confused with an arcing. Transformers hum, that's what they do. So if you actually hear a sizzling, like a frying egg sound from a pole, and say, for instance, it's in your backyard or your neighbor's yard, and your noise is like 20 over, you probably found the pole. But, you know, if you start getting in your car and going out and looking for it, it's going to be really tough to find unless you have a radio that and maybe some sort of directional antenna that you can hear it. And like I say, you've got to have a gain control or you're going to be at a loss because there's going to be so much noise out there. You're just not going to go nowhere to look unless you can use attenuation. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you.
Hi, Jeff. It's Kim Carr.
Yeah.
We have underground utilities out here,
Yes.
but I still have about an S9 ambient noise level in my house that I never really have gone after.
Okay.
Ground system's pretty much the better of the two.
Yes, unless the power lines are out in your backyard. And I do have customers that have underground service. However, the main line is very, very close to them. And then they have issues. If you're within a neighborhood and the main line is, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 blocks away, that's probably a safe place to be. I'm not saying that you're not going to get power line noise. You probably will, but it's not going to be 20 over. It'll probably be maybe, you know, S5, S6, maybe in that neighborhood. From my experience, I've seen. Now that one in your house is going to be very easy to locate. You just shut off your main breaker. If that noise goes away, then it's something in your house, and then you just one breaker at a time until the noise goes off. It'll be easy to find.
Yeah, I have done the main breaker. I haven't done the individuals. And it's because I don't have antennas worth of crap here, so it's hardly worth the effort.
You know what? When I go out to a customer, if I see a directional antenna, I say, thank you, Lord, because that helps me so much in locating the line noise, because once I plug my instrument up to it, I can see a gain, you know, the fingers, as I described earlier. It's kind of like a spectrum analyzer. It goes up as you get closer to the noise. So if I've got this antenna and I'm pointing, you know, toward the noise, it's going to go up. And then as I get away from it, it's going to go back down again. And you just kind of, you know, zero in just like you would a spectrum analyzer. And that's going to give me a direction. Then I can pull up a map. And 9 times out of 10, most of you guys have some really good directional antennas, and it's going to lead me right to the noise. Now, if you have wire antennas, which a lot of guys do have them strung out, then it becomes a little more of a problem. But usually the noise isn't that far away. I don't have to go a mile this way, a mile that way. It's going to be somewhere pretty close to where you are. That's my general, you know, experience at running these type of you know, problems. Any other questions?
But what if you have a standby generator?
I haven't run into that problem. I'll be honest with you, I have not. When I'm using my instruments in my vehicle, if I go down to a low frequency, then I'll hear my motor noise from my alternator. Of course, I've got a filter on my instruments that I can put on, and it'll knock that out. A standby generator, I guess I suppose you could get alternator noise. I really don't know. I'll be honest with you, I've not run into that problem before. You know, I guess it's possible.
Jeff, what about a swimming pool pump, one of the variable speed pumps?
It can be an issue, and we've had pump problems before. Industrial pumps, like water waste places and things like that. Sometimes swimming pool pumps. I don't run into it that much, not as much as you would think. I don't know if they're making them better now or what, but I really don't run into those pump problems as much as you would think I would. You know, as many pools as there are around. You know, but I don't run into that problem that much, to be honest. Usually things that aren't power line associated are usually inside somebody's house, and it's usually some sort of an arcing device, a charger, or that kind of thing. Those are the things to look for first. You know, there was a time when people were trying to, they were buying these cell phone boosters, you know, and they would buy this cheap stuff, you know, made in China or whatever, and that was causing the problem. And it wasn't the device itself; it was the charger that was plugged in. You know, I had a customer 3 weeks ago that he says my modem goes off every morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, and then it starts working again at about 7 o'clock at night. Well, that tells me that there's something on a timer that's causing a problem. Well, I went into his house, and of course, it's not going to be line noise because that's line noise doesn't have a clock. It could be a street light, but there were no street lights in his neighborhood. So now I'm asking him, I'm quizzing him, what do you have on a timer? I mean, is there some sort of guard light you have out in your garage or some sort of light out in the backyard that comes on a certain time? No. What could it be? And so his modem was over there close to where he's not a ham. He was just a regular guy, a customer. But his modem was next to all this stuff he had plugged in stereo and everything else was all on these power strips. And so I just started unplugging things one at a time because I could take this unit, this 243 I was showing you earlier, I could put a rubber duck antenna on there and just walk into this house. And when I got over there to where his modem was, boy, that thing shot up because I had to go out there at 5 o'clock in the morning. Got some overtime on that deal. But anyway, once I found out it was really hot right there, I started unplugging things. And sure enough, I got to this one wall wart and the noise went away. And sure enough, his modem came up and started working. This was like a Comcast type modem, which by the way, he'd already replaced. And so I said, well, what is this thing? Well, all the wires were all messed up. It was like a bird's nest and everything. And I said, here's your problem right here. Let me know what you find. And I had to go on my way because it was going to take him an hour to figure out what it was. Well, he calls me about an hour later. And sure enough, he tells me, I found the problem, Jeff. And it was exactly what you said. And he says, I have a camera that's mounted outside that when it goes into infrared mode at night. And then it comes off of infrared mode in the morning. And that's exactly what was happening. Once it went into that mode, his little, transformer he had plugged in started arcing. Put too much of a load on there or something, but it started arcing. And so you don't replace the device, you just replace, the transformer, So if you have any kind of device like that, like a cell phone charger or whatever, that's causing a problem, don't replace the cell phone charger itself, just replace the little wall wart that's going into the wall there.
Hey, Jeff, this
Yes.
is Rick.
Yeah.
I have 3 kinds of noises that happen around the house. One is the washing machine, and you can hear it making buzzes and moving frequencies and changing as it changes cycles. The other one is the next door neighbor's variable power air conditioner compressor.
Wow.
And the third one is we have had an ozone generator put into the air conditioner. And that one was just a total broadband, really loud noise the whole time. I was able to put some ferrites on it, but
yeah. I think I've run into that last problem you're talking about before. It's up in the attic, right? Is that where it's at?
Right. It's in the supply plenum, not the return, but the hot or cold air coming out.
Is that wired directly to your breaker box, or do you actually have like a transformer that plugs into up to the attic?
It runs on the 24 volts supply for the air conditioner.
Okay.
So I don't know whether it has a power supply inside it or whatever, but
yeah. The one I've run into before was actually plugged in the attic, and once we unplugged it, it took care of the problem. But I can't say that I've had big problems with large appliances, to be honest with you. I mean, I've never run into problems where refrigerators or washing machines or that kind of thing has had a problem with my customers. So that would be new to me.
Okay.
If you're sure that's what it is, are you positive that's what the problem is, the washing machine?
Yes.
Because when it comes on, that's where the noise is, right? It's yeah.
And I haven't tried to abate any of it. I just was saying that's where some of the noises that I've detected from in the house. I use a little FM or an FT60, which has got an AM mode on 432 and 2 meters also. So the AM mode really makes it easier to find them.
I hear you. What S level are you getting noise at? Just out of curiosity.
Well, on say 40 meters, it's a S1 or it's an S unit or so above the background noise, which is probably 5 or 6 some of the time. So it's not real loud. It's just, if you're watching on the digital mode scans, you can see the lines kind of just kind of moving and spreading out like fingers as things go into weird modes.
Yeah, I mean, is a washing machine old? Is it an old machine or?
No, it's it's probably 15 years old, so not an antique. It's new enough to have electronic control board and that kind of stuff instead of a stepper.
Gotcha.
It's pretty common to read through various radio forums, people talking about the washing machines the newer washing machines making noise. That's kind of a common thing.
I see. I haven't been called out on that before, to be honest with you. I guess I've evaded that that little problem.
Well, I tend to call you when it's outside the house. So
yeah. Well, I appreciate it.
How many times have you had doorbell transformers?
Many times. It's easy to locate a doorbell transformer. Usually the first thing you notice is that the light on the doorbell is starting to flicker. And then on your meter and your, the 243 I was showing you earlier, it's very erratic. It's not sequential. So in other words, it'll come up and then it'll go away. And then maybe a minute or two, it'll come back up for just that short bit. And then maybe 4 minutes, it'll come back up again. It's not any particular pattern that it happens. And it doesn't happen all at once either. It's always intermittent, always. What's happening is that it's your doorbell transformer itself that's causing the problem. And pardon me?
I was going to say, growing up in the 70s, we were about 80 miles north of Houston, and the Astros, listening to them on, I guess, KPR or KTRK or whatever it was. I don't remember what AM station, but they'd always cut their power back down about 7:30 in the evening, and the signal would get weak, and here comes the doorbell noise. Figured it out the one evening. My mom and I are trying to listen to the baseball game, and a neighbor comes over and rings the doorbell. As they're ringing the doorbell, the noise goes away. I knew nothing about radio at the time, except I was into, that was pre my CB days.
How about that? Anyway. But we never into that problem quite often. And it's been even as far as a block away, which is pretty substantial, in the RFI world. A block away for doorbell transformers, it's pretty good distance, really. Usually those things are concentrated to where it's either in the house or it's next door or something like that.
Yeah. I worked for HLMP. I put a picture of my old shirt I found going through an old bunch of clothes that were being thrown away from March of Dimes walk when I worked for HLMP 88 to 92.
How about that? Were you a lineman?
That's my picture. No, I worked in data processing.
Oh, okay.
Worked with the payroll group.
What service center were you at? Or were you downtown?
We were downtown, 811 or 611 Walker, whatever the number is, in the old tower.
The old tower. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Anyway, appreciate your talk there. Good information.
Well, good. Well, thank you for inviting me. And if you guys have any more questions, feel free to call me anytime or email me. I'm available. That's what I do for a living. It's not an imposition. Some guys, they'll say, well, I hate to bring you out here. Well, I get paid for this, so it's not a problem. Okay.
Is it better if we have donuts?
The police.
No, Jeff. My name is James Sumker. Don Days invited me to participate, and Jeff, I appreciate you coming out this week to help me with my line noise out here in Huffman.
Well, you're certainly welcome. I hope we get some satisfaction out of that quickly. I know that's what the problem is. Actually, for you gentlemen that don't know, he has a problem with a power line. The bond wire on this power line is running right up against a square washer, and it's just arcing. And you can see a burn mark on there, and my instruments point right to it. And so it's a simple fix, but trying to get a crew out there, I just hope they're timely with it. That's
the tricky part, the part I really appreciate is I'm not even a CenterPoint customer. I'm an Entergy customer. And one line over from me is CenterPoint. So Jeff was gracious enough to come on out and take a look at it for me. I really appreciate that.
Oh, that's not a problem at all. Any of you guys, if y'all live on the fringes, I have a lot of customers that live on the fringe. I have one on his side of the road is CenterPoint, and across the street is Texas, New Mexico. So a lot of times I don't mind going out there and locating stuff that's not mine. In other words, if it's Texas, New Mexico, or Entergy, I don't mind locating it if it's close to our area. I'm not gonna drive to Austin, but I mean, but if it's close to our area, I don't mind locating because I know these other companies don't have RFI guys. As a matter of fact, I was told that Texas, New Mexico, the only reason they have an RFI guy is because they're a bunch of linemen, and they lined them up against the wall one day and said, "Hey, is anybody a ham operator?" And one guy raised his hand and he said, "You're the RFI guy." That was it. I mean, I think they might have bought him one little instrument, and a lot of times he'll call me, and I don't mind going out there and locating. This stuff's hard to do if you don't have the right equipment.
Hey, Roby.
Yes.
Were you able to show Jeff that card?
No, not yet, but I will in just a second. We got a couple of questions though. This is from Rick Garcia. These are chat messages.
Okay.
Can underground cables cause RFI? I'll read them all. I'll read them all, and then you can respond. Okay. It says, this is from Rick. It says, can underground cables cause RFI? I have an easement and a big electrical box on it. Can they check that? Can the Sangamo meter cause RFI? Those are his questions.
Okay. The Sangamo meter, if that's the new smart meter he's talking about, is he one of our customers?
Yeah. Yes,
okay.
I'm one of your customers.
Okay, so he has a smart meter. No, you're not going to get RFI from that smart meter. That thing, it transmits at 900 megahertz. You're not going to have a problem with that.
How about the box in the back? The big box in the back that has all the cables that distribute through the neighborhood.
The box that distributes to the neighborhood. You're not talking about a breaker box. You're talking about
pad mount transformer, probably.
That's right. That's what it is.
Pad mount transformer. Yes, we've had some issues, not many, but those things have arresters, lightning arresters inside, and sometimes that'll cause a problem. And sometimes a loose wire will cause a problem in a pad mount transformer. We don't run into that problem very much, but it can cause a problem. Now, as far as the underground wires that go underneath, I have never had an issue with that. I'm not saying that it can't cause interference, but I've never had an issue with it.
Okay,
I'll send you an email and see if you can come because I have a pretty bad noise problem and it sounds like electrical. Thank you very much, man.
Hey, I'll be glad to come out. If you're in our territory, I'll be glad to come out there. So yeah, if you send it tonight, I could probably be out there tomorrow.
Wow.
What part of town are you in?
I'm in Clear Lake near NASA.
Oh, not a problem. Don't they normally have concrete poles over in that area?
Yeah, there's some poles that are nearby me, like less than a block away. And if the box in the backyard is not the problem, probably one of those poles is the problem.
Send me an email and I'll call you tomorrow.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Hey, Jeff, may I interject here? Since Rick said he's over by NASA, I know that the NASA club is going to reach out to you now because we have heard noise as well. So it's possible it's the same thing. I don't know, but I know that the station trustee is going to reach out to you. So if you coordinate that, we may want to try to coordinate together, maybe save you a trip. But I just want to make a quick.
Are you close to the customer, the other customer that I just talked to?
Yes, very close by, about 2 miles away.
Okay.
Yeah, just one, and then one quick comment, Jeff. Absolutely fantastic presentation, and thank you so much for.
Thank you very much, and send me an email tomorrow, and I'll catch up with you. Okay. It sounds like you might have two different noises because 2 miles is a pretty good stretch.
Okay, we had another question from Leslie. He says, when you're using your Yagi for finding noise, is it oriented horizontally or vertically?
You know, that's a very good question because sometimes you'll hear it horizontally and not vertically, and sometimes you'll hear it vertically and not horizontally. And that's one thing that we're trying to do is if you don't hear it one way, turn it the other way. I'm constantly doing this. You know, when I'm looking around, I'm constantly turning it 90 degrees. And so it's amazing, but yeah, it's sometimes you can hear it one way and not the other. It's just the way it is.
Thanks, I appreciate
Jeff,
that.
this is Doug again. I had to step out for a couple of minutes, so if you've addressed this, I'm sorry. I understand that you're going to be retiring early next year. Are you training your replacement, and more importantly, are you instilling your work ethic on him?
Well, I mean, a long time ago, part of me wanted to just throw the keys at my boss and say I quit. But no, I've gotten a little older and wiser since then. I'm going to train this guy the best I can, and starting in January, he's going to start riding with me, and so he has the fundamentals down. I think this job requires a lot of people skills, and that's something I found. I love talking to people, and that's one reason I jumped on this job. The guy that did it before me had no people skills whatsoever, and he put a bad name out there with the company. And so I immediately came in, and I wanted to try to establish goodwill amongst our company and the guys out there in the field. The last thing I want to do is knock on somebody's door and they look at me in disgust. I mean, I really want to help you guys. I mean, I'm a troubleshooter at heart, and that's what I do for a living. And solving problems just makes me happy. I mean, I used to think that about my wife, that if I solved her problem, she'd be happy. But then I learned to listen to her. That's a whole nother story. Okay. So, but yeah, anyway, so yeah,
happy.
I'm going to try to train this guy to be more of a people person than just a technician. A lot of those guys in the shop didn't want this job because they don't want to deal with the public. Because not everybody's nice out there, and there's some crazy people out there too. I'll tell you, I mean, the Harris County Mental Hospital has so many beds, maybe 200 beds. You can't tell me there's only 200 crazy people in this county. I mean, there's some nuts. So yeah, I run across all kinds of people, so,
Hey, Jeff, I've got an underground transformer in my backyard. What's the primary voltage to that likely?
Boy, I can't answer that question. I'd be lying if I did. Mainly because
no worries.
If I had my line next to me, he'd rattle that right off, But whatever I said, I'd probably be wrong. I'm sorry. But do you suspect line noise coming from that?
Well, I'd hate to say I suspect it because I haven't done reasonable troubleshooting yet. But it is very close to the antenna connections from my antenna.
Gotcha.
So I'm kind of looking at things that are close by. So grain of salt at this point.
Okay, well, send me an email. I'll be glad to come out there and help you out. That's not a problem. If it doesn't happen tomorrow, we'll do it next week. Let's see, next week's getting close to Christmas. I think I'm off Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe Monday, but because I'm working Monday. But we'll schedule a time. Okay, I promise you that.
Well, my high performance station is out in Colorado County. I wish y'all would buy San Bernard.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's a little bit far, but what you're talking about is in the CenterPoint area, right?
Right. Yeah, it's my house, and I've got a very simple wire antenna in the attic. And when I get frustrated, well, then I go do something else.
Sometimes we have issues with wires in the attic, and it's usually something coming from inside the house. I've run into that problem before. So yeah, I would check your breaker box first and shut everything off and just put a battery on your radio and see if that helps.
Yeah, I'll do some of that first to save you the trip if I find it.
Okay.
I appreciate the offer. And I second the other comments. Wonderful presentation. It's great to see somebody with the CenterPoint that has the work ethic and the attitude that you do.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I just, I'm kind of sorry I'm going to be leaving. I am going to be leaving though next year, but 38
you don't have
years
to,
is enough. And
you can stay. That's all right.
Yeah, you can stay.
Well, they used to tell me, guys that would leave, I'd say, well, why do you want to retire? And they'd always say, well, you'll know. And sure enough, they're right. I mean, I know. I'm tired of it, and to be honest with you, things are much better in our shop now than they've been in a long, long time. They pretty much leave me alone because I'm the old guy, right? And so they let me do my own thing, and I kind of like that. But yeah, it's time for me to move on.
Well, when you get retired, then you have enough time to get a ham license.
Yeah, there you go.
You know, people always ask me about being a ham, and I'm really not. I've been a radio man for 38 years, but I always tell people that, you know, when you work on radios 8 hours a day, the last thing you want to do is go home to a radio, you know? And
Right.
so, I mean, if you eat steak all day long, you want a hamburger every now and then. So it's really not a hobby to me as necessarily as much as it is a way for me to make money or whatever. To you guys, it'd be like working at the candy store, you know? But anyway.
Hey, Jeff.
Yes.
Jeff, I want you to know I came in here late. Sorry, I
No
got
problem.
tied up with something else. I missed your presentation today, but you know I've seen it plenty of times.
Good.
And good to see you, by the way.
Well, thank you.
I got my antenna back up, and I haven't noticed any noise in any particular direction. So maybe all the work that we did for the first 10 or 12 years that I was your best customer, I guess
Alan,
it looks like it paid off.
My best customer, yeah. I know Alan's territory backwards and forwards. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
But hopefully we've taken care of. Now I will say this about Alan's territory. We ran into a number of transformers that were bad in his territory, and I rarely find transformers that are bad. But I think we took care of most of them. And,
yeah, it seems that way.
And so, yeah,
I haven't done a comprehensive sweep yet, but I will before you go. I promise.
Good. Okay.
Okay, Jeff. Here's some of the old stuff. Can you see that? The thing that I put on the screen.
Let me see.
Still sharing his
Tell you
screen.
what, let me get out of my presentation.
Okay.
Figure out how to do that. So stop share, right? Okay, there you go. Things in your home that could cause electrical interference.
Okay, so
right.
so this is one picture that we had, and let's see. I'll find the other one. Let's see. Share screen. Here it is. Oops, that's the same one, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So where's
I will.
See, there we go.
I know where this came from.
Mr. Colley, he was the one that was doing RFI when I first came to the company back in 1983.
You see the date on that over on the left?
I see.
1276 was when that form was created, not this one printed. The other thing that's interesting is you see the little metal ferrule in the right-hand side. So you could use a string or a rubber band or something to tie it to the doorknob.
Yeah.
And not have it tear out.
Oh, that's incredible. That thing's a relic. You know, Thurman Colley's his name. He when I first came to the shop in '83, he was a pretty old man. And he used to come into the shop, and I'd see him in the morning, and then he'd leave right away, and then I'd see him in the evening. And I often ask those people there when I first got there, I said, what does this old man do? They said, oh, he does RFI. I didn't know what RFI was. I had no clue. You know? But he retired not too far after I got into the company. But I remember Mr. Colley. He was
Cool.
I didn't know him very well, but
Roby, put the other one back if you can, because what's interesting is all of the things that aren't on it.
Okay,
all of the possible.
Give me a second here.
Okay. Computers.
Oh yeah.
Another source.
So this is the back side of that same card.
No, I see. That's the same card. Okay. Yeah.
And notice it doesn't say computers, and it doesn't say.
No wall warts.
I like the one that says sewing machines.
Yeah.
I can't say I've run into too many of those. In fact, none.
Mix masters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh well.
Been a while since I've seen a mix master.
That's a great card to have. That's something else.
Yeah. I keep too much old stuff around. My wife says she keeps too much old stuff around too. So
yeah, but she's referring to you.
Oh, me. Right. Thank you guys for putting up with that little blast from the past.
Jeff, you said you worked in the radio shop. I've had my finger in a number of master execs, and and
Yeah.
things, and even back to the old Motorola GGV series,
Oh, wow.
vibrator series radios.
You know, we didn't get into the Motorola's until, well, we did have some Micors and some Micor stations, and
Those are
that's
good radios too.
Yeah, I got into those, working on those. But when I first got to the shop, they were really into GE radios. That was their thing. And after Alicia, we had an 8-channel UHF system for the whole service territory back in the HLMP days, and 8 channels. But after Alicia came, they decided, well, that wasn't enough because the channels were just way too crowded, And this was before cell phones, obviously. And so they decided to go with a trunking system. And that's when we converted over to the Motorola system.
Mm-hmm.
And,
So what year did you start with HLMP, Jeff? Or at the
1983.
Oh, okay. Right at the
Right
big
before
at the water. Yeah.
And when the hurricane came, they told me I was going to have to work 16-hour days. And I went, what? Huh? But yeah, that's what you do, So anyway, but
Jeff, again, thank you. Really enjoyed the presentation. Good stuff.
I hope you guys got my number and my email especially, and just let me know if you have any problems. I'll be glad to come out there. Okay.
All righty.
All right. Really
Thanks,
cool.
Jeff.
Send him a copy of your QSL card.
Okay. That's a good idea.
Yeah, make a copy and send it to his email address.
Nice. Well, Robbie, I'm going to go ahead and sign off.
Okay.
And, y'all take care.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
Guys.
See ya.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Okay, gentlemen, anything else?
I'll be calling you.
I want to wish you all a happy Christmas, Merry Christmas. It won't be too far away.
I had one quick thing, Roby. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just didn't know if you all saw it or not, but Contest University is going to put on a propagation summit on January 23rd. I think that's a Saturday. Let me double check that. It is at 10 a.m. our time starting. So contestuniversity.com. You can sign up for free there if you're interested in attending that. And I think they've got their presentation list set as well. So just FYI, didn't know if anyone had heard about it or not.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I have one request. If anyone knows of somebody that knows about foundations for freestanding towers, I ran into a problem doing the excavation, and I need to talk to somebody that has a little bit of moxie about that. And we're well past the point of looking at the what does the manufacturer recommend? In doing the excavation today, I ran into some odd soil problems, and I need to talk to somebody that knows about that kind of thing. I may have to rustle up a civil engineer. Probably.
Roby, have you posted a question on Tower Talk Reflector?
No, I have not, and
that's the place to go.
And I'm a little hesitant to do that because this is kind of a tough question. And
they've got real experts, tower experts.
Yeah, I'll watch that all. I watch that all the time, and I may do that, but I'm not hopeful that that'll produce a good result.
Well, what exactly is the problem?
Soft soil.
Well,
I got an aquifer.
Oh, sounds like your 55-footer may become a 40-footer.
It looks like it's going to be about 12 feet the way it's going.
Well, it starts at 50 and then kind of gradually becomes as things sink in.
You have to put water wings on the bottom of the tower.
So all you got to do is buy extra sections, and as every 10 feet it sinks, add another section.
Crank up to adjust the.
There you go.
I know. I got a Trilon tower that I hope to get going up in the air pretty soon, and you probably see the same thing from whoever your manufacturer is. It talks about if you got softer soil or harder soil, the size of the base changes. But it sounds like you have something that later on it may be shifting or sinking, I guess, is your concern.
Yeah, that's my concern, and it's understand. Okay, all right,
Yes, I got to run. Been fun.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, Roby. It was great to have that session.
All right, guys. So keep the ideas coming. We need them, and we'll see what comes up for January.
Sounds good.
All
Gonna
right.
be hard to top that one.
Yep.
Sorry I got the bullshit out so late, but I got busy. Sorry.
I understand.